Welcome to Recap, your go-to channel for all things cinematic. I'm excited to explore the world of movies together. From Hollywood blockbusters to indie gems, we dissect plots, explore characters, and uncover hidden treasures. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and join our Recap community for film recommendations and exclusive insights. Get ready for a cinematic adventure, Recap in English. In a modest community in Spain, the Este, he enters the staple and takes a lot of containers by concealing them inside his coat. While outside, his child Ian utilizes his exceptional ability to make implications, causing the representative not to see the burglary. The fragrance he leaves subsequent to making a little buy-in. Ian keeps the deception up while his father searches for their truck. Nonetheless, a gathering of charming young ladies strolled by in Cali and an oddity, diverting him and making him drop the deception. In the store, the representative finds the missing jugs and snatches her mallet to come later in the event that he sent, so Ian gets her in a deception again by imagining he has a firearm in his grasp. Nonetheless, this doesn't make the representative stop and he in frenzies, making him inadvertently shoot the woman. As the lady bogus, a blaze of her recollections goes through Ian's eyes and police alarms can be heard close by. Area hauls he in a manner in the truck, and when the cop minds the woman, the injury is no more. As the Senta speeds the truck not too far off, the police pursue them, so in turns the mirror to utilize his power and reflected back at the squad cars, making them believe they're taking an alternate street as Facente chastens him for it. At the point when they drive excessively far, the deception splits and the police get up to speed to them again, restarting the pursuit too, and contends with his father not understanding the reason why they should hide out when they could be rich with a straightforward stunt. Set won't offer in, saying it could get their consideration, yet not replying in when he asks who is they. When they come to the ocean side, Ian discharges a greater deception that makes the cop believe they're in a hailstorm. The cop sees the hail harming his vehicle and the solid breeze out of nowhere makes it flip, hauling it the whole way to a corner store. There the official at last sees it's all alright. This entire episode is on surveillance cameras and before long reaches the strange Dr. Adriana. The following morning the team are on the neglected boat where they furtively live. He had dreams about his dead mother singing to him when he was a child, and when she out of nowhere shouts, he awakens feeling upset. The aroma. He makes an extraordinary birthday breakfast for Ian and shows him an image of his mother requiring the day he found his powers. Then, at that point, Ian needs to go to the arcade so he can have a typical teen birthday, however Facente disallows it. Angry, Ian goes to his space to let out his indignation on the preparation faker, yet after bunches of hitting he gets away from through the window. Around. The cop educates the barkeep regarding the hail he saw, and this is heard by the perceiver, who utilizes his ability to wreck the cop. Later at night, an exceptional group encompasses the boat and gets inside while Facente is occupied by the television. Adriana uncovers herself, saying she's accompanied the office in treating Facente like a close buddy. She needs to be familiar with Ian and hit Facente to make him talk. However, at that point they receive a message from different specialists with Ian's area. In the interim, Ian is at the arcade and the perceiver shows up searching for him. Thus, because of specialists, the perceiver pushes one of them behind a drape and effectively whips him prior to utilizing his radio with a phony voice to let Adriana know there's a perceiver nearby. Adriana quickly lets every one of her representatives know this is their new need. Then the perceiver continues searching for Ian, who is taking cover behind a table. The other organization specialist starts shooting at him, however the perceiver simply leaves and shows up behind the specialist, uncovering this as a deception. The specialist pursues the phony perceiver while the genuine lifts his hand to attempt to precarious him, however unexpectedly an office specialist puts a protective cap on him to impede his powers. The perceiver pushes the man back and starts battling him in a dull room. Then, at that point, he tosses the specialist through a wall and winds up encompassed by an entire group. However, he continues battling them gracefully while overlooking the VR players around them. When every one of the specialists are down, the perceiver removes the protective cap and goes searching for Ian. Meanwhile, Ian is drawn nearer by Esther and another specialist who take Ian outside. Adriana is hanging tight for him in a van and says there are more individuals like him prior to showing him they've grabbed Facente, so Ian goes along. Anyway, when he gets inside the van, they quickly tie him up and put a protective cap on him prior to taking a blood test. When the perceiver emerges, the van is no more. So he goes down the road and makes a deception of a carriage to make a truck unexpectedly pause and cause a mishap. The van driver thinks about halting, yet Adriana advises him to continue going, uncovering that the truck was mentioned 2 minutes after the fact. He awakens in the organization office and Adriana lets him know their set of experiences. The office is an association that is at battle against the still, small voice, a gathering shaped by individuals with similar capacities as Ian. They've been controlling individuals in power for quite a long time. That is the reason it doesn't make any difference what ideological group wins, the nation remains something similar. The organization needs to stop them and recuperate genuine majority rules system. Adriana makes sense of the perceiver will believe that M should go along with him or he'll kill him. So she requested that the kid work with her, all things considered. She likewise needs the recipe in Ian's blood since it could hinder the foe's powers. Then Adriana considers what Ian can project and notices different things like individuals. However, he makes sense of he's attempted in making the deception of an individual is inconceivable, which Adriana denies. She gives in a test that he considers excessively hard. So she makes sense of that his powers are constrained areas of strength for by appearing in an image of his mom and referencing his miserable youth. Ian figures out how to make the deception Adriana needed there on a tremendous oceanside and an irritating fly zoom around her. Next, Adriana requests that he take her back to the real world, however, to keep the fly in a circle, which is the name they give long-lasting deceptions. Notwithstanding, Ian closes the deception and requests to see his dad. Adriana brings Ian to Shiva Sanjay, who advises him to be cautious in light of the fact that the organization will simply probe him. However, Adriana clarifies Ian can investigate his dad's recollections for figure out reality, which is his subsequent power. Ian occurs to his dad and sees a youthful Facente working for the organization. At the point when everybody got occupied by an unexpected caution, he took the risk to capture child Ian Adrian and track down him and attempted to stop him, yet area fended the gatekeepers off and took off. Back in the current area drops as Ian relinquishes him and ends up being upset to acknowledge Facente isn't his genuine dad. Adriana affirms this, yet in addition uncovers his mom might actually still be alive. A short time later, Adriana shows the blood test results to the American, who needs to know how Ian got his powers. Adriana makes sense of he got them from his folks, which they had thought inconceivable on the grounds that perceivers should be sterile. Ian is the primary individual who was brought into the world as one. The American orders Adriana to get the recipe and dispose of Ian, yet she rejects, bringing up that Ian can possibly stir the third power and be their main protection against the dinner. Be that as it may, the American believes the dinner to be a legend. In a little while, a specialist checks Ian's test, brings about sneers when he finds his neuron factor is 204%. In the meantime, Esther approaches in his room and lets him know he's only a guinea pig, so she offers him to get away. They make it ground floor just to out of nowhere be encircled by watches. Be that as it may, Esther battles them all with a cudgel, a taser, and fantastic expertise. In only several minutes, every one of the specialists are oblivious, and the pair attempts to leave. Be that as it may, N says they ought to bring the teacher to on the grounds that his recollections have the responses he's chasing. While the couple takes Facente away and searches for a vehicle outside, Adriana at long last notification the getaway and rings the caution. The specialists run outside to start shooting, yet Ian drives as quick as conceivable while contending with Facente over his untruths. Inside the lab, the specialist from before out of nowhere takes a weapon and shoots everybody in the room prior to checking the surveillance cameras while uncovering he's really the perceiver. On out he utilizations his powers to make the gatekeepers shoot somewhere unexpected. At the point when they arrive at the mountain street, Ian's insane driving makes the vehicle get off the street and crash. Seconds after the fact, the perceiver comes by and Ian utilizes his powers to cause him to accept there's nothing there except for the perceiver grins prior to leaving. Thereafter, the triplet figures out how to track down an inn to conceal in the following morning. Ian and Esther hung out on the rooftop prior to getting back to the room where they find Facente has dropped subsequent to drinking. He actually needs his responses. So he occurs to his dad again in the memory and sees Adriana holding a record that had a place with patient Kaminsky, who might be before long moved to Poland. Then, at that point, she checked the van outside and let the driver know that the recipe would be infused this evening. Ian takes a stab at glancing around and sees that behind the driver there's a covered individual missing 3 fingers. Such shock makes an lose the association. Minutes after the fact, he goes to the bank and provides the representative with an irregular piece of paper while utilizing a deception. So she believes it's a check he needs to cash. The representative gives him the cash, and as Ian gets out, she sees the check is only a note and calls for security. Fortunately, N meets with Esther and they figured out how to take off quickly enough to lose them. Back in the inn, Esther has a good time making the money fly all around the room prior to getting in the shower. Yet, Ian is concerned on the grounds that Facente isn't there. At that point he hears somebody park outside, so he advises Esther to remain covered up and afterward readies a deception. At the point when the perceiver comes inside, he tracks down an unwanted room. In any case, he promptly sees reality by revealing a mirror since deceptions don't influence it. He and the perceiver quickly start battling while the deceptions continue to move, and Ian attempts to utilize Esther's taser and, surprisingly, a seat without much of any result. They battle for some time until the perceiver pushes in against the wall, and in the wake of looking at the washroom, he investigates Ian's recollections. It turns out he went to the bank for cash since he needs to go to Poland and track down the researchers that made the examination. He passes out when the perceiver drops him and the man simply leaves. Minutes after the fact, Ian is longing for his mom again until he's awakened by Facente, who reproves him on the grounds that the bank burglary is an issue on everyone's mind in the city now. He says it's Facente his problem for deceiving him and continues to call out to him by him rather than father. A contention results and Facente tells Ian he has two choices. He can either go on down this way that will just bring him agony, or he can leave with Facente. Ian decides to go to Poland without him. In the meantime, Adriana and the American monitor the chronic numbers on the cashier and take and find he's purchased train tickets. Sometime later, Ian and Esther show up in Poland and promptly go looking for the lab. There are specialists sitting tight for them close by, however the perceiver kills them all with a couple of shots. At the point when the couple tracks down the lab, it's an old deserted building, and Ian rapidly sees the room from his fantasies. Nonetheless, he swears it ought to be greater, so he begins tapping on the walls until he hears an empty sound. He quickly breaks the wall and finds a secret room loaded up with cupboards and reports. There's a notepad with a title, Project Mindfulness, and inside there's an image of his mom that makes him consider their time together once more. Esther peruses the rear of the photo and they discovered that the researchers behind the tests is Ian's granddad, who involved his own girl for this. In the meantime, Facente returns to his boat and is out of nowhere visited by Adriana, who tells Facente that he ought to quit drinking and become a genuine dad. Back to Ian, he unexpectedly finds that Esther has brought the perceiver inside, saying she's assisting him with finding the solutions he needed. Ian will not tune in and takes out a firearm, however the perceiver realizes it's a deception, strolls directly through him. As the perceiver glances around, he continues to track down duplicates of Ian and soon he's encircled by a lot of them. He knows they're all deceptions and takes a gander at Esther, who focuses at where the genuine Ian is. The perceiver corners the genuine and with his own firearm and drops stunning news. He's Ian's genuine dad. During the virus war, a researcher made an equation that he infused into a lot of workers, including his little girl and the perceiver. This gave them extraordinary powers and they became spies equipped for mental stunts. Notwithstanding, after the conflict was finished, the public authority didn't have the foggiest idea how to manage them and was apprehensive these covert operatives would work for the foe, so they chose to kill them, every one of them individually. They were beginning to lose trust when unexpectedly the donkey appeared. The donkey is the last and generally strong of the perceivers. What's more, when they attempted to kill him, he uncovered he could utilize the third power, mind control. This power permitted him to make the foes kill one another or even self-erase. A while later, the donkey assembled the survivors and framed the heart through which everybody figured out how to conceal their powers and carry on with a typical life. They called him the donkey since he was sterile. As a matter of fact, all perceivers should be Ian's mom, and the perceiver hadn't utilized security along these lines. What's more, on one occasion she absolutely got pregnant, which was viewed as a marvel. Ian is the main perceiver conceived normally. At that point, specialists start to enter the structure and are heard by the perceiver, who advises Esther to take the kid to his home in Madrid. While the team uses the stairwell, the perceiver battles the specialists. First he shoots them all without a second thought and kills a lot of them, yet they continue coming, so the perceiver starts utilizing deceptions of bugs to divert them and shoot them quicker. Sadly, two men actually shock him from behind and catch him with a cap. In the meantime, the pair goes over certain specialists too, yet Esther effectively thrashes them right away in any event, utilizing their own weapons to kill them. Then she and End hurry to the rooftop, where Esther flaunts her abilities by taking a very cool leap and landing impeccably. Ian falters. In any case, at that point more specialists appear, so he slides down a passage and takes off with Esther. In a little while, the perceiver is being held at the office's lab. Subsequent to sending a robot to take an example of his blood, they initiate the machine to concentrate on his body, which puts him through loads of agony. The American orders Adriana to stop since this will kill him and they need him, however Adriana overlooks him. In any case, the perceiver is shaking and moaning with such an excess of agony that Adriana must choose the option to stop the examination. Minutes after the fact, a researcher brings Adriana terrible news: the equation is so weakened in the perceiver's body that they can't recuperate it. Adriana imparts the news to the American, saying Ian is their just expectation. At the point when the perceiver is feeling much improved, he requested a few water and the robot presents to him a glass. At that point the perceiver uncovers he has the third power, and through the camera on the robot he assumes command over the specialist's psyche and causes him to enact the robot's weaponry, killing every one of the researchers and specialists watching him. Then, at that point, the perceiver makes the expert delivery him. In Madrid, Esther and Ian show up at the perceiver's house and the servant gets him with an enormous shock. Ian's mom is alive, however she's in a mental state in light of the trials. As Ian draws nearer, the perceiver likewise shows up and lets him know his mom isn't totally gone. A minuscule piece of her brain is as yet stuck inside her. Ian occurs to her, and when they meet again in her recollections, her genuine body begins shaking. Before long the perceiver goes along with them and shows in the recollections of the horrible torment his mom went through as a result of the organization. In any case, before she was caught, she embedded a memory in Ian's brain so he'd approach the equation which is addressed by the toys. The perceiver maintains that the recipe should make new individuals with powers, yet when he attempts to approach the toys, he came by an imperceptible wall. He understands his mom doesn't believe anybody should get the equation, yet the perceiver continues to raise a ruckus around town wall, and this makes incredible harm her. This aggravation removes everybody from her brain and back. Truly, he sings his life as a youngster melody for his mom before she kicks the bucket. At that point a lot of specialists surround the house and break into the room. Ian is in a horrendous close to home state subsequent to losing his mom. Lastly stirs the third power, permitting him to control the specialists and make them thump each other out in only a couple of moments. Then, at that point, Ian goes searching for additional specialists, and this time he really makes them shoot each other to death, grinning at the bloodstains while overlooking Esther's interests. The specialists get terrified and go outside to rejoin Adriana. Ian follows them and makes them tumble to their knees with their firearms prepared for self-cancellation. Unexpectedly, Facente makes an appearance to let Ian know that the perceiver is controlling him and that he ought not be liable for a slaughter since he'll think twice about it later. The perceiver tosses a firearm at the floor and advises him to kill the master as well. Yet, Ian simply needs vengeance against his office. The fragrance shouts at the perceiver for considering himself Ian's dad when he never raised him, and the perceiver fights back by shooting the Sante. This shocks Ian into dropping his command over the gathering and rushes to keep an eye on Facente while the perceiver removes Esther with his last energy. The Sante requests that Ian occur to him, realizing that he will not endure it. The memory shows how it was his mom who requested Sante to remove the child to save him, so Ian apologizes to Facente and calls him father once more. They embrace and afterward watch one of their darling recollections fishing together before Vicente his body yields and kicks the bucket. Subsequent to expressing farewell to his father, Ian snatches the firearm and goes searching for the perceiver, who was stowing away at a party in an adjoining building. Ian follows Esther's voice and uses his powers to drop the party participants to the floor, uncovering the perceiver holding Esther at gunpoint. A psychological battle starts among Ian and the perceiver as they attempt to assume command over the firearm, yet Ian doesn't completely rule his powers yet, and the perceiver recaptures control of his hand. Then, at that point, the perceiver starts controlling the group to make them assault Ian, who gives his all to safeguard himself against various assaults. He utilizes a tray as a safeguard, yet he continues to get overwhelmed. Be that as it may, soon this frantic state permits him to take advantage of the third power and starts battling the foe all the more effectively, wrecking them with the assistance of a couple of containers. The perceiver simply continues to send individuals, and the last one is solid to such an extent that snatches the end by the neck and nearly kills him. Fortunately, Adriana appears and shoots the person in the head. Subsequently, Ian asks the perceiver not to hurt Esther, but rather Adriana brings up there's no other person there. Significance: the perceiver put a circle inside his head. As Ian starts going through his own recollections, he understands he really did it, everything he saw yesterday when the perceiver put the circle to him when he originally saw him in the arcade. In emergency he feels double-crossed once more. In any case, Esther says her affections for him are genuine. Overreacting, Ian shoots Esther, however the shot goes through her and kills the perceiver. All things considered, Esther races to Ian and they share an embrace in a little while Ian sorts out for his mom's and Facente his bodies to have graves in the burial ground. Adriana visits them too and requests that Ian pick a side, saying she actually needs the recipe. However, Ian will not join the conflict and leaves with Esther to begin another life. Then he gets in the truck and he and Esther at long last kiss before they leave. Ian takes a gander at Adriana, who is conversing with the American. Be that as it may, the man doesn't show up in the truck, meaning she has a circle in her mind to try to buy in and turn on notices so you can observe more recordings like this. Thanks for watching.